Sure.
So, Mr. Pobuta, thank you for coming and joining us tonight. For everyone, Mr. Pobuta graduated from Keene University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in communication as well as minoring in marketing. He also currently works as a senior creative and media strategist in Athlete Exchange for Wasserman. And in October of 2020, Mr. Pobuta founded Summit Sports and Entertainment. So, Mr. Pobuta, can you kind of just run us through your career path, kind of from post-college up to now?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I'll start like right after I graduated. I actually got into finance for a little bit. I was really unhappy there, hated it. I actually really got into Gary Vee's content. For those of you familiar with Gary Vee, he posted something one day. It was like, if you hate your job, quit it. So I took that advice and I did that. And I was still living at home at the time, so it wasn't like huge risk. I actually went back, started working part-time at Keene. And then, I figured I was going to try and start, getting back to more towards what I studied, which was media, marketing, all that stuff. So I got a job with Spark Foundry, which was a advertising agency under the Publicis Group, which is one of the larger communication companies in the world. Was there for about 8 or 9 months before I actually, ironically enough, started to work for or under the Vayner umbrella for the Sasha Group. So I started doing some consulting there with Vayner Sports, as well as doing, advertising for their small business ad agency. And then from there, I started doing some consulting as well with Gary Vee personally. And that's when, personal branding and everything, really struck my interest. And I was doing a lot of different marketing stuff for the Vayner Sports sector as well. And then that inspired me to start my own thing, which is when I started Summit Sports. Remained pretty close with AJ Vaynerchuk, who's Gary's brother, who was the one who kind of gave me the push to start it. From there, I started just bringing on my own clients. So my best friend is Quentin Nelson. I grew up with him in Homedale, for anyone who's familiar with the area. He was kind of complaining about his marketing. He's an offensive lineman, not the most marketable people out there, but for him, for an offensive lineman, he does have some market appeal. And then, I started taking over his stuff. And from there, I started to expand into the UFC. So I started bringing on a lot of clients there. Randy Costa, started working with Rob Font, Calvin Cater, a couple other big time fighters. And, that once I started doing that, I realized I wanted to, be in the media marketing, personal brand building for these athletes full time. And, that's when I came across a role open at Wasserman. Because obviously, the LLC just kind of started a little bit over a year and a half ago. I'm not ready to take it completely full time yet, but, I started at Wasserman in November this past year. I basically am on the strategy side of building the partnerships between athletes and the brands that we work with. So like, for example, we just did a commercial for the new Uncharted movie that just came out on the release weekend. It was DeMar DeRozan, and it was like some clips from the movie and stuff. And we were behind that, the whole strategy behind it, and getting it out there, pushing out the content in the media to the world. So that's what I'm up to now, and just kind of going up the ranks in Wasserman, learning everything I can, and then seeing where Summit takes me.
So you talked about your relations and working under Publicis Media with a company with that many resources. What is it like working for that company, and how much reign do you really have? Are you allowed to really just, do you have a lot of those resources at your expense?
At Publicis was more of it's so big that you're like just like one small piece of the pie, honestly. Like I wasn't, the resources were there for sure, but you kind of had to go out of your way to do it. You weren't like working directly with all these people in all these offices worldwide. I more so started to branch out and do things like that. I realized when I went to Vayner, and I started reaching out to a lot of people different. And like I said, I started doing consulting with Vayner Sports and then Gary and a bunch of different stuff over there. But yeah, no, at Publicis, it was just kind of me getting my feet wet back into what I studied in school, because prior to that I was in finance. So I was just really trying to learn the ropes of media marketing.
So kind of working in kind of entertainment kind of business, what's kind of the process like of obtaining talent?
Yeah, it's it's honestly high volume, right? So like when I started my LLC and I started working with Quentin, obviously you establish credibility. So like my credibility was that I worked for Gary, and then obviously I had a client of Quentin's stature, which gave me some credibility when I would go to pitch other people. But I would pitch, probably I was shooting DMs out to athletes all the time. I was probably sending like 100 to 150 DMs a day to different athletes. It was like a volume game, you know, that you're going to get a lot of no's, but you know, the ones that you get yes, you're going to make the most of the opportunity. And Randy Costa was the first one who gave me an opportunity. And then through him, word of mouth is how I got put in contact with Rob Font, Calvin Cater, all those guys, and some other UFC guys as well. And then, you know, I've been in discussions to do some other one-off stuff, autograph signings, things like that through Quentin, just, you know, talking to other people, but, you know, you do hard work for them. It just kind of shakes out, you know, with them word of mouth.
So,
Sorry, Luca. Working with someone like Quentin Nelson, it's, you know, not the sexiest position in the NFL. He's an offensive lineman, but he's one of the more marketable names, especially for the Colts organization. How do you take a brand in a position like that and make it into like a superstar, recognizable player and even a household name that anyone who watched the NFL would know who he is?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for someone like Quentin, I think the biggest thing is finding the right brands and companies for him to work with and partner with, right? Like, so you know, I've done brand deals, and I'm not like proud to say this, but like there's some guys who just say, I want money, right? Like especially UFC guys that are underpaid, they'll just say, hey, you know, get me a deal where I'm going to get paid X amount of money. And, you know, I don't even care if I like the product or whatnot, which, you know, people do that. And there's a lot of athletes that do it, but you can kind of tell when it comes across as like phony. It's like not organic. You know, you want there to be a mutually beneficial relationship between the athlete and the brand. And I think, you know, in my experience, that's where I found the most success. So, you know, those partnerships that I've done with Quentin and even if it's not like a brand per se, like a local business we've done things with, or, you know, Bud Light's another one that like we've done stuff with. And obviously him doing the keg stand definitely helped with negotiations and things like that. But, you know, it was just very on brand for Quentin. And I think, you know, finding that relationship between brands or, you know, even just local businesses or, you know, like I said, memorabilia, doing autograph signings, finding that something that's going to be mutually beneficial for both sides is the most successful way to do that.
but recently, a couple months ago, the NIL passed. Has that passing kind of, you know, changed how you reached out? Like, are you starting to reach out more to the college athlete, or are you kind of maintaining kind of that professional kind of prospect?
I dabbled in it when it happened. At the time, I was pretty busy with doing some philanthropy stuff with Quentin, but I dabbled in reaching out. What I would like to do to just kind of ease into it, and I think for me, my next steps in trying to get involved with the guys at the college level is to just kind of do like those autograph signings, those small like local things, especially down in like, you know, the Alabamas and the LSUs and the Auburns where they have a really large community, like making those appearances. Those guys can make some pretty good money doing it. And I've actually talked with George Pappas too at Monmouth about, you know, some like local bagel shop in the past. Dan Pilari is a friend of mine. So he connected us, and that was about I don't know, like 4 or 5 months ago. But yeah, I think for you guys, I think it's definitely a really good opportunity for people trying to, like I mentioned before, establish credibility, build a resume, you know, reaching out to like college athletes. You know, the professional athletes want to see people who have, like I guess proven it or whatnot. But we're college kids, you know, they're willing to take a chance if you're able to get the money or whatever they're looking for, product or partnerships, whatever. So I think that's a really good opportunity for you guys, and I think it's something that I still need to explore more, I think.
You mentioned before you're very, very good friends with Quentin Nelson, and from watching Hard Knocks, he has a very likable personality. But I looked onto your LinkedIn a little bit, and I saw that you guys had a blocking cancer dinner. What was kind of the process of setting that up like?
Yeah. So prior to last season, Quentin and I had a talk about how he wants to start, you know, making a difference in the community, and we have some other ideas and stuff we want to do. You know, giving back to like underprivileged communities and things like that is something that's really big to Quentin. But we used to do this thing called Jimmy V nights with him and my cousin, and it was we still do it, but I shouldn't say used to. We smoke a cigar, we drink a glass of scotch, and we just kind of talk about life. And you know, I don't know if you guys know the Jimmy V quote: "Laugh, think, cry." If you laugh, you think, and you cry, that's a full day. That was like a big thing he said before he passed. So one of the things we said was cancer kind of affects everybody. We wanted to do a partnership with the V Foundation. So I reached out to them, and then we started working on the Jimmy V dinner, which originally was supposed to be a celebrity softball game, but we couldn't have because of COVID last year. So now the inaugural celebrity softball game is going to be this summer, and then the dinner, the second annual dinner will be the night before. But it was a really good event. The softball game got canceled. And we were given like 15 days to get the dinner together, and we ended up raising like over $100,000 for cancer research. So it was pretty successful.
You talked about the Uncharted commercial. I really have to ask about that because I saw the movie, I saw the commercial. We're about to go to a Bulls game on the 28th. So, what's the process of? I mean, you just talked about marketing on a micro level. What's the process of marketing on a macro level? Finding deals like. Um, Personally, I wouldn't have put DeMar DeRozan. I wouldn't have put two and two together. Like I didn't know that DeMar DeRozan would fit so well with the Uncharted movie. So what's the? Could you walk me through that process?
Yeah. So I'm on the strategy team with the Athlete Exchange. So we're basically like a creative agency within the agency. We have, like I mentioned before, we have bigger brands that come to us. So Sony is one of the companies we work with. They came to us, they said, hey, we want to come out with a promo ahead of they give you like a brief. So they'll say, I want to come out with a promo ahead of opening weekend. And we're looking for an NBA star who fits X, Y, and Z. We want a guy who's kind of maybe been like a little bit of a journeyman, never really gotten gold, similar to the theme of the movie, they're looking for gold. But is well known and has a good following. And so we have our strategy team. It consists of me and about four other people. And we'll literally go on a phone call, just sit there for about an hour and a half, and just like spitball ideas back and forth until one of them sticks. And usually it starts with either a general idea for the commercial or the ad or whatever the promo we're trying to do, or like the piece of content itself, and then or it'll be the talent. And this one specifically was talent. I remember I think I was the one that mentioned DeMar. I was like, he's having an incredible year, and he's a guy he's been on Olympic teams, but he never really won a championship. So I thought the fit was there. Kind of a journeyman, like Raptors, San Antonio, and then now the Bulls. I thought it just made a lot of sense. And there were some other names we had kicked around, but DeMar was the one we ultimately ended up on.
Sorry, Luca. So for Summit Sports, have you guys specifically targeted UFC fighters, or you just kind of coincidentally found success in them?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I ideally would like to get more NFL clients. I think long term for me, I want to become certified. I was going to sit and take the test to become an NBA PA agent this year, but I think I'm going to wait till maybe this upcoming year or the year after. Eventually I would like to dive into basketball because I think it's very marketable. But to answer your question, NFL guys, I would love to go, but UFC, I just kind of found a niche. Like those guys are very underpaid and they don't really know the amount of money that they're leaving on the table. These guys are known worldwide. They have fans all over the world. It's not just, the United States where, like the NFL is majority here. A lot of these guys have followings like in Europe and wherever else. So I think it was like an untapped market. And once I started working with Randy, who was working out at this gym called Sanford MMA in Florida at the time with a lot of other big name UFC guys, they saw he was getting all these marketing deals, and they're like, how the hell are you getting all this? How are you making more money than we are outside of the octagon? And he just, he basically said, I've been working with this kid from New Jersey who has been helping me. So then there was word of mouth, and I started working with a lot of those guys that way. But it just kind of happened that way. It just shook out that way. Honestly, I think there's, a really good opportunity there, especially since they are underpaid. That might be changing soon. But I think is a really good opportunity with UFC guys. But ideally, I would like to get some more NFL guys. I just brought on another one. Jaquan Hardy plays for the Dallas Cowboys about a month ago.
Luca's gonna love that one. He's a big Cowboys fan. But I wanted to ask you something, and this has to do a lot with what CJ told us that first meeting, which is NFL players are the most difficult players to market because their faces are covered, the positions are drastically different. So could you walk us through sort of your strategy with all these different players, all these different athletes that you're marketing for?
Yeah, I always push my guys at Summit. Like I push Randy. I've got Randy on TikTok. I push Rob. Rob is not great with social media. I always push Rob and Cal. Cal's pretty decent on Instagram, but TikTok is like where it's at, man. Like it's untapped. There's so much. It's basically like real estate, right? Like it's just land that people can go and you just grab the attention of everyone you possibly can. The more you're posting, the algorithm will take care of itself, and you'll start building a following. But like especially for these guys in the UFC or any sport, really, like if they put up content of them training or working out or whatever, people who are fans are going to find the content, and eventually just kind of it'll grow your platform on every other social. You can just funnel it to everything else. But that's, with guys like Quentin, who, Quentin's an offensive lineman, so it's kind of like an unwritten code. They don't really like to be in the media and show their face and things like that. Jaquan is in the guy from the Cowboys is in big into gaming. He's in the gaming space. And so that's an outlet. I told him, I said, hey man, maybe start posting some of your gaming stuff on TikTok, like get as many people as you can, as many eyes on you as you can, just to kind of build your personal brand. But yeah, I think that is the best way, is being active on social, giving fans and people who are interested an opportunity to view their lives, outside of the sport.
So do you push a guy like Jaquan to go on like Twitch for something like that as
Yeah.
well?
He has a Twitch. He was doing that before I started working with him. But yeah, he streams.
I mean, from watching Hard Knocks this past summer, Jaquan Hardy was definitely a great personality. I know. I love the part. I don't know if you saw it where like he had the glasses and you couldn't see. So they call him like Rex Spec. So he's a great character, and he got a touchdown towards the
We
end of the
just
season, which was
we
great for him.
we
But
just we just did a deal with him with I think it's called like RX something, but they're giving him like a pair of gaming glasses, a pair of like everyday glasses, and a pair of like football goggles that he was gonna be wearing. So like there was a playoff on that. Like they had saw the Hard Knocks thing too, so that's how that kind of came about.
let's see how those things kind of work out.
Yeah.
So what was kind of the process of starting your own podcast? I know during kind of COVID, you had the Beyond the Brand podcast. What kind of things did you learn from that?
Yeah, I without the podcast, I don't think I would have learned how to reach out to these athletes and these brands, and at the way I was doing it. Like like I mentioned before, it's all about like kind of volume and reaching out to as many people as you can. You're going to get a lot of no's, but the one or two yeses are going to be pretty cool, and that's what I learned when I was trying to get guests on the podcast. So it was like peak COVID. My roommate and I was working for Gary at the time. Gary had told me, he's like, hey man, like, if you're interested in something, like start like picking people's brains, start a podcast, start creating content. So that's kind of how that started. And then, I just started sending out like 100, 150 emails a day. Just like people, I would look in their bio, I would see that their email was available. Or I would look in like on LinkedIn. I was connecting with a lot of people on LinkedIn, trying to get in contact through there. I'd find the representatives on social media, and I would, go that route. But I remember the first big one that answered was like Devin Hester. He like got back to me and it was like a test. Like I remember when the day I had a meeting with Gary told me to do that. I went home, like on the subway ride home, I was like, train ride home. I was looking like at different athletes, and I was kind of just like looking at their profiles, different emails, saving them in my notes. And then I just started firing them off. And then before I even told my roommate about the idea, I just started like sending like a cold pitch. Like, cause when I was in finance, I was doing like a little bit of a salesy role. So I kind of followed that outline and just tailored it to the podcast. And they were asking me like, Devin Hester was like, yeah, I'm down, but like, what's the name of your podcast? Like what, like, and I didn't even have a name. It was just like a test to see if people were even going to answer. So that was how I kind of learned about like cold emailing, sourcing, trying to get in contact with these people. And then, fast forward to me having Summit. Had I not done that and been doing it and got really, good at it, I don't think I would have ever thought to do that. So that's, without the podcast, I don't think I would have ever, started Summit.
You mentioned that you're starting to, target more NFL athletes, but then you also said that they're, kind of limited to just the scope of the United States, that they don't have as much of an international market as other athletes might be, like in the UFC. Mm-hmm. So what is your, thoughts and reasons behind targeting more NFL personalities, even though they're more limited to the US?
Yeah. I guess from a business aspect, I mean, they are very marketable here. It's the number one sport in the United States, but also to, for me to take Summit full time, like everything I'm doing right now with a lot of these guys is commission based. So I'm getting a percentage of the deals that I go out and get for them. Whereas like NFL guys are making enough money that you can charge them a retainer fee. With UFC top guys, you can charge a retainer, which is like they're paying you monthly to, be their representative. But these NFL guys, and a lot of them have the same agents, but the agents don't really do too much of the marketing side of things. So a lot of them lack a guy who's going to go out there and get them deals and autograph signings and, handle all that other stuff, the PR side of it. But yeah, I think from a business aspect, one, it's highly marketable here, which is the biggest thing. And then two is, just for me, if, one day I do take Summit full time, it's going to be, I need that income coming in. So that's the side of it from my side, is that I need that retainer from, those athletes coming in.
So thus far with Summit Entertainment, what's kind of been your favorite, or not favorite, your biggest challenge?
It's a good question. I would say in the beginning is getting the clients is tough. But also too is like not getting too content. Like if you get like I've gotten some deals for some guys like Randy and Cal and Rob where it's consistently paying them, and it's easy to just kind of say, oh well, I'm making money off that now. Like let me not, like I should be fine. Like let me just go focus on other things. But every client, especially when you're doing it by yourself, I just brought on somebody else who's going to be helping me now. But when you're doing it by yourself, it's kind of hard to like give your attention or the same attention to all your clients, which I think is really important, not making one more important than the other, and just kind of giving them that attention and, making sure that you're doing what they brought you on to do. And, treating with the same energy and interest for all.
You're now working under the Wasserman brand. And under this banner, you have athletes like Marshawn Lynch, Russell Westbrook. What is it like now having these resources and representing even bigger markets, so to speak?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like where I'm at with the Athlete Exchange is they don't even necessarily have to be Wasserman clients for me to work with them. Like DeMar's not a Wasserman guy, but he's
Yeah, that was something that I noticed too.
yeah. So it's really limitless as far as the marketing side of things. Like we could just be the ones facilitating the deal or like doing the content and then bringing on someone else from another agency. But, it's limitless for what I do at Wasserman, but like for agents and things like that, or the sales and marketing people within Wasserman who just solely focus on our athletes. Yeah, I mean, the possibilities are kind of endless for them too, right? Like, but it's just more targeted to those people. Ours are like the ideas and things that we do at Athlete Exchange are, pretty endless. Like we can work with anybody we really want to.
Now you have pretty kind of diverse experience. You've worked, and you mentioned it before, a little bit in finance, and you also done some, summer analytical work with the worldwide business research. So what have you learned from these experiences outside the sports entertainment industry that have been able to help you inside the industry?
Yeah, well, for starters, that finance job that I hated taught me to kind of put happiness above all else. So like you guys, I don't know how close any of you are to graduating, but the biggest thing for me coming out of school was I took the first job I can get. And looking back, I don't look at it as a mistake because I did, as much as I hated that job, I did learn a lot about sales and cold calling and not having the fear to hop on the phone and just call people and be able to take no. Like you'll learn that if any of you ever, are in sales or anything like that, which is a big part of any, business. But I think one learning to just follow something that you're passionate about. Like I took a job out of school that was just wasn't me, but like I said, it's not a bad thing because I learned a lot about sales and how to conduct myself in a business manner and things like that helped me there. And then just the media side of it when I went over to Publicis and then working for Gary obviously was huge. Just learning on the marketing side of things and the consumer behavior side of things, media, learning that like the tool that the social media could be for the athletes today. And I think all those things kind of compounded. And then even like, we talked about it before, the podcast was huge for me too. Just as far as reaching out and finding different ways to get in contact with these athletes and brands and things like that.
You've had kind of experience in a lot of jobs. what's kind of like that interview process kind of like, and what's like some successful kind of strategies you use to kind of help you land these jobs?
It's a good question. Believe it or not, I actually took a elective in college. It was like my senior year was like an interviewing class. It was a communications class, which really helped me a lot. But um, honestly, like the more you do it, the more you interview, the better you're going to get with it, the more comfortable you're going to get just talking to people, talking about yourself. Sometimes when you first are getting into it, it could be a little weird. I think everyone kind of goes through that when they're coming out of school. But I guess as far as tips is just, be yourself, be confident. You're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Like I said, I've been in a job that I hated, and I probably should have asked more questions. But at the time, everyone that I graduated with was getting jobs, and I wasn't. And I was comparing myself to them, and I really shouldn't have been. I should have been focused on, doing what I was passionate about and finding that. And I just took the first job I got, and because it was there. But like I said, just be confident in who you are, and obviously come prepared. I've had some shitty interviews where they don't go too well, but just be yourself, be confident. Like that's the biggest thing I can tell you. And stay patient too. Like don't rush into anything. The way it's supposed to happen is it's going to happen. And especially trying to break into sports is really tough. It took me, 3 years, and it was me creating my own opportunity before I was even able to really work, full time in sports. So, don't get discouraged.
So how did you end up getting the position at Wasserman?
Yeah. So I was working, I had Summit, and then I was working, still doing some advertising. And then I saw there was an opening for, senior creative and media strategist, which is the role that I eventually got. But I saw it was just a really good fit. It was basically, what I had been doing with Summit on a bigger scale with a bigger team, not by myself, for one of the better or bigger agencies in the world. And then on the other side of it, the creative side of it was like, and the media side of it was like my expertise in social media and paid media and advertising. Like that's a whole nother, side of it that I do for them. And, it was just kind of like the perfect fit. And I remember they had someone who left probably a couple of weeks before I had interviewed. And then, when I talked to them, it was honestly like the perfect opportunity. Like it was just everything that I had done in my past just kind of, meshed well with it. And they allowed me to still work with Quentin and still, keep Summit and work with some of my guys there. And they liked my UFC experience because that's some of the space that they're trying to get into eventually. So I might, be a part of that whole, process when they try and spearhead that. But it just worked out. Like the timing of it was really, I guess lucky, the timing of it. But
So a lot of our guests, something that I like to ask them is really just where you found your passion. Where did you find your passion? And I know some of that has to do with, finding out what you didn't like, which was that finance job. But could you tell us a little bit about where you found your passion, what your childhood was like in terms of which sports you watched the most, and how marketing found you?
yeah. So I've always been a diehard sports fan. I always used to say, like everyone else, when you're younger, you want to be, a professional athlete. And then you realize you're not the most athletic kid ever. So I played sports growing up. But it's funny, like I was always really fascinated with like the business side of sports. Like even if it wasn't marketing, it was like just like the front office stuff. Like I was always really into all that stuff. And it just always fascinated. It always had my interest. Like I was looking at like, I was like real nerdy, but like salary caps and stuff. And, big time, I'm a Jets fan. So all we really look forward to is free agency every year. So I was just, that was big for me. But yeah, I think it started at a really young age with that. And then it's funny. There was an article about that my school had written about me my junior year about is basically like how I wanted to get into sports marketing, even though like I didn't even know like what I was going to be doing. That's what I wanted to do. And I ironically found it the night before I accepted my offer from Wasserman, like right before they offered me, which was like, I think it was like 6 or 7 years prior that they wrote that article. So it just kind of works out in weird ways, man. Like I just had always had interest in sports. I knew I always wanted to end up there. Deep down, I didn't really know what it was going to be. And even what I'm doing now at Wasserman, like, I don't know if that's going to be the end all be all of what I'm going to do in sports, but I think the hardest part about working in sports is that first step, getting in. It's a really, really tough industry to get into because everyone wants to get into it. And, once you're in, a lot of people say like, once you're in, you're in. I think that's like the first step of getting in. And, it's pretty cool to like me seeing that article all those years later, like ironically the night before that Wasserman offered me. But it was just something I was always passionate about and just was always really into.
So I know
You
you're.
mentioning that, what
ahead.
sort of advice would you give a college student looking to work into the sports industry?
Yeah, like I said before, don't get discouraged, and just keep your head up, be confident who you are. Sometimes you might have to take a different route, like I did. Like I couldn't trust me. I applied to like hundreds of sports jobs, sports teams, front office things, agency jobs, media jobs, everything you could imagine. Um, and it just didn't work out, but it works out the way it's supposed to. So just stay patient, stay consistent. That's another thing. A lot of college people coming out of college, a lot of people make the mistake of like they don't it's a full-time job to get a full-time job. It's not something that just kind of falls in your lap, and I think a lot of people overlook that. And I'm not even kidding. Like there was days where I was applying to like 100 jobs a day. Like, what I mean? It's really like you got to put the effort in if it's something that you really want to do. And like I said, don't get discouraged. It's like sales. It's like trying to get new clients for Summit. It's like trying to do anything. You're going to get a lot of no's. But the ones that say yes, you just got to make the most of those opportunities. So just stay consistent, stay confident in yourself, and don't get discouraged because it'll happen eventually. Just got to keep going.
Go ahead, Will.
Oh yeah, sorry. So have you thought about branching out to like different sports, hockey, baseball, soccer? I know it's not as attractive as like football or even like UFC based on like the market, but have you thought of like branching out to like athletes in different sports?
Yeah, I've had some conversations. There's an agency similar to mine, like Summit, that does solely focus on AHL guys. I've had conversations with them. That was another thing I did before I started Summit, was like, even though I had AJ, like Gary's brother, who was kind of walking me through the process, I had a lot of conversations with guys who had like their own management companies, like marketing agencies and things like that on LinkedIn. I would just reach out and just say, hey, I would like to, pick your brain for 10, 15 minutes and just ask them a bunch of questions because I wanted to learn more about it. But to answer your question, there's agencies that like specify in certain sports. Hockey's not one that I've really looked into. Baseball is one that I've looked into. I've had some conversations with some baseball players. But yeah, no, like, ultimately, like, football and basketball are personally my favorite sports. I'm a big UFC fan as well. And, maybe like if I were to expand, like if I do take it full time and I expand and I have other people, like I just mentioned, I brought someone else on now who's going to be helping me. Eventually we get to that point, then yeah, I don't see why I wouldn't want to expand and, do it for other sports. But for right now, the ones that interest me the most and I think are the most marketable personally is basketball, football, UFC. I think there's a lot of opportunity for, and then, like I mentioned before, I would like to become an NBA agent ultimately. So that's, kind of the route that I'm personally looking to go.
You talked a little bit about versatility. You said that you were working on a smaller level and now a bigger level with Wasserman and with your finance skills and your memory and the way you pay attention to things. How important is it to be versatile in terms of skill and in terms of knowledge?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think, I don't know if I did the best job of explaining it before when I've had a bunch of different jobs like you guys mentioned. And, back in the day, that used to be kind of frowned upon. A lot of people would say it's a bad thing to maybe, jump around and hop to different jobs. But I would venture to say the opposite. I think it's a really good learning experience. I think you're young, you're able to do it, especially now. I think it's more accepted, but you got to learn different things and try different things to see what you're going to like and what you want to do. So, it's the only way you're going to do it. Like you only know if you're like in the fire, like actually trying it and doing different things. So, yeah, I think, try as many things as you can coming out of college and you'll find what, you're most passionate about to do.
So recently, cryptocurrency, NFTs, all this kind of stuff have kind of gotten famous, and a lot of people have tried to hop on the boat early. And we've seen some celebrities kind of back these things, and then they're not legit things. Is this kind of conversations you've had with your clients, or you're more just kind of keeping it kind of just how things have always been?
Yeah, we Quentin and I did a NFT actually for the V Foundation last summer ahead of the dinner. Um, and then I was supposed to do one with Randy through the same company that we did it with Quentin. But honestly, like it was I mean, it still is the Wild West. Like a lot of people really don't even know what to do. And I'll be the first to tell you, we weren't the most successful with it. But I will say that I learned a lot from it, from the experience. And if I ever were to do it again with a client, I think I would have a better idea of, what direction to go in. But it's definitely something I dove into. And that's another thing is like, I'm not really afraid to try new things. Like even if it doesn't work, like that NFT project that we did. I'm glad we did it. I don't take it as a failure at all. We learned a lot from it, like I said, moving forward. And even now, like with Wasserman, there was an NHL project that came up across, the strategy team's desk where they were like, hey, like we want to do NFTs for the NHL All-Star game, blah, blah, blah. Does anyone on the team have insight? And I could say, and, I was able to speak on it because of, my experience. So, not everything that's like a failure is really like a failure. You don't always take it as a loss. There's always, glass half full. There's always a positive side to it. And the positive for us was that, we learned from it. And, moving forward, like I said, if I ever were to do it again, I think I would have a little bit better of an idea of how to go about it.
Could you talk a little bit about your experiences with Keene University? And, like Monmouth, Keene doesn't have this giant network of sports personnel. So what did you do in your undergrad to sort of prepare you to be in the sports industry?
Yeah, I honestly like I mean I wasn't the greatest student ever in college. I knew ultimately what I wanted to do. But I just always had an interest in sports. Even like if in PR classes and things like that, I would always try and do projects revolved around sports, even if it wasn't like a sports class. It was like I was always doing my projects around something that interested me. So um, the interest was always there. But I think another thing I did really well in college was network. And like I mentioned before, even before I started Summit, I would reach out to a lot of people on LinkedIn, which is something that I got started on very early, like even when I was in college. And I think that started when I interned at Worldwide Business Research, that company I interned for in college. I was really heavy on LinkedIn, and that's when I started to learn a lot about the social platforms. But I use that a lot to reach out and just basically, like I've heard people say it, in college, and Gary Vee might have even been one of the people that I originally heard him say it. But look at people that you want to be like, or positions that you would have interest in being in one day, and just kind of reach out to them. And you'd be surprised, a lot of them take the time to take 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes and just talk to you and answer your questions and do things like that, like what you guys are doing here. There's a lot of people in positions I'm sure that you guys would be interested in. Check it out, reach out to people on LinkedIn. You never know who's willing to talk to you.
So you mentioned, staying on LinkedIn is very important and maintaining those connections. What sort of strategies do you use to kind of maintain the connection? Because, a lot of times you reach out to the person at first, get that little hello, and then it's like hit that wall. You're like, oh, now what? What kind of strategies do you use when you're kind of younger?
Yeah, I think just staying consistent. Like I said, don't get discouraged. I mean, obviously, don't harass the person and spam their inbox, but don't get discouraged when someone doesn't answer, or if they read the message, or if they answer it first and then you don't hear from them for a while. Like, don't be afraid to circle back and just follow up. Stay consistent. That's the biggest advice I could say. I've always kind of had a knack for staying connected with people. With friends, whatever friends I haven't talked to in a while. I always, I've been pretty good at just kind of reaching back out, and it's been a knack of mine. But like I just stay consistent is the biggest thing, and don't get discouraged from it.
Thus far in your career, what's been your favorite sports moment? Whether it's a cool interaction with like a celebrity or just a cool project that you got to be a part of.
Wow. Can I say as a fan what I was the biggest moment in my life?
Sure, that's fine. Yeah.
Probably the back-to-back AFC championship runs for the Jets when I was younger. It's going pretty wild with that. My older cousin was like my older brother, just hanging out with them. But that was probably like my favorite as a fan. Coolest interaction I've had. I mean, I've done some pretty cool stuff with Quentin, just in the last few years, since he's entered the league, some stuff that I probably would have never thought we would have been able to do. Just meeting different people, going to certain events. You mentioned the Super Bowl earlier. Like that's something that, we will probably go to, next year, or, attending the Pro Bowl, things like that. Just real, cool once in a lifetime experiences that, I'm fortunate enough because of people that I work with, and, Quentin being my best friend, I get to do a lot of cool things like that with him.
That's awesome. I mean, Quinn Nelson, very likable guy. So I mentioned before, Hard Knocks, they had the first in-season version of that. And kind of working with Quentin Nelson, was there any kind of points you made to him? Like now he's getting his exposure, and we mentioned it before, linemen don't get a lot of exposure. So people got to see the personality side. Was there any kind of strategy you kind of gave him, or you just kind of told Quentin, just be you?
Yeah, Quentin, I mean, he kind of beats to his own drum. He does whatever he wants anyway. But he didn't really want to be on camera too much. They wanted to get him, for one-on-one and one-on-one a couple times. And he just, opted not to. It's just not really his style. He'll do it now. Like, we're doing a lot of promotional stuff, or we're planning on it. We're kind of rolling out the PR plan for the softball event this summer, and the dinner and everything. He'll do a lot of stuff with the media then, because it'll benefit, the charity in some way. But, as far as, interviews and things like that, he likes to keep a low profile. So there's nothing really specific that I said to him. I mean, I'm always open for it, whenever he wants to do something, and I always run it by him. But he just, didn't really strike his interest at all. He was, dealing with some injuries throughout the season. So I think he just kind of wanted to keep a low profile.
Obviously, for Quentin, you have that childhood relationship with him. But as for your other clients, what do you do? How do you get to know them on a personal level, to be able to market with them and to be able to find brands that align with their interests?
Yeah. First part of that question is, just, similar to staying in touch with these people is, staying consistent. When I first started working with Randy, I went down to Florida with a bunch of my buddies. It was my, my birthday weekend, but Randy trains down in Florida. I made a point to, go out and hang out with him, and, take him out for a night. And like, and it was super casual too. It's not even just like a, total business thing. Like we went out, we drank together and hung out. And, I met his girlfriend for the first time there too. But you develop those relationships, and then, like support, just supporting these guys. A lot of them, don't have, you'd be surprised, a lot of them don't have the support system that you'd think. Like, they keep their circle very tight. So when someone new is coming into it, it's hard for them to trust them. But, Randy being, going to fight in Vegas, I was at every one of his fights, and sitting. I mean, we got close enough where he was giving me tickets, but at first, I was buying tickets just to be there to support him, and, show I was there. And even when he lost, not just kind of like kicking him to the curb and saying, hey, you're not so marketable anymore, still working with him and helping him achieve his goals. But, every relationship is different with different clients. Like my relationship with Rob and Calvin is very, straight to business, especially with Calvin. I rarely interact with Calvin. I more so talk to him through his manager. With Rob, I talk to here and there on Instagram about personal, like how you been, how's everything going, things like that. But with Randy, Randy and I text almost every day. Quentin and I obviously, talk almost every day. My relationship with everyone's a little bit different. Jaquan, I talk to here and there a few times a week. But I just think, you find that relationship, that balance with whoever it is you're working with. And, that's kind of, you follow the lead of that.
Because you've talked a lot about like working around the clock and kind of like always being in contact with your clients, can you just speak on like work-life balance and kind of how you manage that?
Yeah. So, I mean, with Wasserman's a little different because they're based out in LA. I'm based on the East Coast. I pretty much am the only one working from 9 to 12:30. So in the morning, I kind of have my own, time schedule to do, what I want. And then, I work with them in the afternoons. And then sometimes they'll hit you up, when it's like really busy, if we have a lot of projects going on, or like there's deadlines coming up, there's going to be times where they might need me online at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and I got to do something real quick. But it honestly is rare. Work-life balance is big. Like I said, when I was in that finance job, I hated it. I was working to like 8, 9, 10 at night. And then I had to go travel back to Homedale and then be back there at 8 o'clock in the morning the next day in Manhattan. So that was another thing I learned from that job, is that I would never, want to be in that position again. So that was tough. Wasserman, I have a really good work-life balance at Wasserman. And then, my Summit guys, the guys I work with directly, it is, technically around the clock, but a lot of the guys respect, that you have your own, personal life too. So if it's the weekend, unless it's really urgent, like I won't, they won't hit me up. Or if a brand or someone I'm working with, or I want to work with, one of my clients hits me up, I'll respond. And then, I'll make a note of it to, tell them on Monday, unless it's like super urgent. Then I'm available, and, I'll shoot them a text or say, hey, can we talk about this on Monday? I'll give them like a heads up, but I don't go out of, I don't really let it affect my personal time too much. But I also, if you're enjoying what you're doing, it doesn't even really feel like work. So if like I'm texting Randy about the UFC fights on Saturday night, and then, I have to talk to them about something business related real quick, I could just say, hey, by the way, let's talk about this tomorrow or whenever. But most of the time they respect it. They have their own personal lives too. They want to take their mind off things as well. So.
You've mentioned that, you want to get into the NBA and represent more athletes over there. Have you ever thought about, going outside the sports industry and representing more people involved in entertainment, whether that's an artist, a rapper, and a singer, an actress? Is that something you've thought of?
Yeah, I've done. So I've worked with this guy. You guys should probably look into getting him on here too. I know you'd love to do it. Charles. He is the head of Wealth Garden Entertainment, and he works with a lot of rappers, influencers, athletes as well. But him and I work, that's another thing about sports industry. Everyone's very collaborative. It's a very small industry. You cross paths with everyone at some point somehow. But, him and I have worked together, and he said how much, he's enjoyed working with, influencers, musicians and things like that. And part of, I mentioned before, the guy that I brought on to help me at Summit, he works with some influencers. So it's definitely something that I, looking to dive into, and definitely wouldn't be opposed to doing. But like, I think influencer marketing is huge. I think it's a real opportunity to make some money in it too. So I'm definitely not opposed. And, that's part of the reason why I brought this guy on, was to explore it some more.
Is his name Charles Xavier?
Yeah, that's his middle name's Xavier, but
Okay, cool. Professor X.
yeah, yeah.
I know this is, I guess, a little bit unrelated to like sports, but just because I was looking at jobs around like sports and around like the New York area, what's a kind of like a day-to-day, like, I don't know, this is kind of weird question, like a commute, I guess, because I'm not the biggest fan of, commuting, more than, a good amount of time. But I guess when you kind of do, you probably get used to it. So what is that kind of like commute like?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends where you're commuting from. Like when I was commuting from Homedale into Manhattan, it's pretty rough. NJ Transit is probably the worst type of transportation in America. But yeah, I mean, I moved up to Jersey City like right before the pandemic, and my commute was like 20 minutes door to door. It's awesome. It's really depending on like what you're comfortable with, whether you want to do the city life, or, if you don't want to be in that, or even like in the heart of it, Manhattan or Brooklyn or whatever it is you're really looking for. I guess you kind of find it. But, I was doing the commute from home for a while, and it's pretty tough. But everyone's, most companies now are hybrid or still remote. So it's not even something that I think you'd have to worry too much about. But I'm probably going to start going back into our Brooklyn office like once a week for Wasserman, just to, start shaking hands and meeting some more people, because I've been remote since I started there.
So you just said that you're remote, and I know Wasserman has been remote for quite a while now. But how do you sort of, help create these advertisements, like the Uncharted one, for example? That's a pretty big advertisement that's on many different sports channels during peak hours. So how do you sort of set that up in a remote setting?
Yeah, so we have production crews that will go, like we'll schedule it with like DeMar's team, and we'll say, like we'll find a location. This is where we're going to be. This is the time we're going to be. This is the amount of time we need. And then, after the contract signed, we have our production team go out on those days. That time they have whatever, an hour and a half, 2 hours to get it done. They record it, and then, we do all the editing and the strategy behind it. And then I kind of handle the distribution on social media. So like another campaign we did was for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. I don't know if you saw all those guys tweeting about the nominees, retweet for a vote and all that stuff. The copy like in the tweets and stuff was like us. So like everything that those guys were tweeting was from us, and we were doing all the, the strategy behind it. And, then we put some paid money behind it, which I usually handle that stuff to target, specific demographics and things like that. But to answer your question specifically would be, that's the production side of things, but, we handle like the planning of that, and then we send our production team out there.
Is your plan to be more active and more, I guess, sort of in hands-on, so to speak, when it comes to managing these deals? So later on, do you think you'd be, in the same room while they're filming?
Yeah, no, that's still something that I think just now being remote, and like my whole team's in LA, that a lot of the filming is out in LA. But we're talking right now about doing a project with the National Women's Soccer League, the new Women's Soccer League, and they're going to shoot a promo with a team ambassador from every team. One, I think there's 12 teams, and they're talking about doing an East Coast team, a West Coast team, and then like a Central team. So I would be a part of the East Coast team. I'd be on set and just kind of assisting wherever needed, with whatever's needed from the production team. But like that's something that even now, like if something came up and they needed me there, I would go out.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Mr. Pobuta? Alrighty, so we're gonna end this meeting. Mr. Pobuta, thank you again so much for hopping on with us. We definitely learned a lot. Just real quick, is there any kind of contact, either an email or LinkedIn, that you can put in the chat so we can contact you if you have any further questions?
Yeah, you guys can email me at my personal is Evan Pobuta, EVANPOBUTA @gmail.com. You can email me there. You can email me at evan@summitsportsandentertainment.com. LinkedIn, Evan Pobuta, or, on Instagram too. I'm pretty active if you guys want to message me on there. I'm open to talk if you guys have any questions or anything like that, or need advice or anything really, feel free to reach out, and I'm always available. So.
Sweet. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you so much for taking the
Thank
time out.
you.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys for having me.